Welcome to Weekly Cheats. I'm Aaron, and after a week of eating clean, it's time for something sweet. Today we're going to be making OG chocolate chip cookies on a skillet so we can have a nice sundae. But before we do that, first thing we need to do is obviously clean the counter. We're all home. There's no excuse to not have a clean countertop. But hey, if this is the first time that you've watched the video, make sure you go ahead and subscribe and turn on the notification icon. And if it's your first time subscribing, go ahead and throw a comment in the section so I can comment back to you. Also, if you make this recipe, go ahead and post a photo of it on your Instagram and tag Weekly Cheats in it so we can give you a comment back. All right, let's begin. These chocolate chip cookies are actually pretty straightforward. We've got 2 cups of brown sugar, got 2 squares of softened butter, 2 whole eggs, and 6 tablespoons of white sugar. First thing we're gonna do is combine the butter with the sugars, beat that till it mixes in, and then we'll add the eggs. As you can see, our butter and sugar is pretty well mixed up. Now we can go ahead and add our eggs. Once the eggs have been mixed in pretty well, what we'll be adding is 4 teaspoons of our vanilla. And then once that's mixed in, we'll be doing 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of salt. Got all those in here ready to go. Then we'll be adding our flour. One, 2, 3, 4. Stop to scrape the edges a little bit. And what we'll be doing is we'll be adding our flour. It's roughly 4 cups of flour. I like to just kind of gradually add mine to make sure that I don't put too much in and make it dry, because I like to eat a little bit of it as I add the flour. All right, cup 1. Slowly turn the mixer on so you don't explode flour everywhere. Turn this off and add the second cup. Scrape the sides, and if you're a cookie dough eater like I am, this is the best point to grab a spoon and taste some, which I am definitely going to do. Cookie dough. Yeah, buddy. That's definitely the best part. Best point of cookie dough. All right, so we've got our 3rd cup in. I'm gonna be adding another 1/3 of a cup right now. We ate kind of a lot of cookie dough, so I don't think we need the full 4 cups of flour. It's best to just do it in like 1/3 cup increments for that last cup so you don't overdo it. So what we're looking for here is, for the most part, it's not really sticking to the edges anymore, but it's not separating into little tiny clumps where it's too dry. So, perfect. Now we can add some chocolate chips, and I like to add walnuts to it. If you don't add walnuts. Just double up on chocolate chips. But I like both. So put the walnuts just directly in there. 2 cups of walnuts. I do like to do a package of the Guitar milk chocolate chips, and these are the extra large ones. Just throw them all directly in. Could have cut a bigger hole, I guess. Nice big chips. Then I like to throw some semi-sweet, bittersweet ones in there just to give it a little bit of flavor. You only need to do about half of this package though, so not the whole thing. Gives it a nice little contrast. And then we can just slowly kind of pulse this to mix these in. All right. Looks pretty good to me. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, preheat the oven to 425 degrees. If you've got a standard, just a conventional oven, whether it's electric or gas, 425. If it's convection, probably knock it down to 400, just so you don't toast them. I like to just rub my skillet with some butter so it doesn't stick. Yeah. That'll do. Then, we've got all of our cookie dough here. Gonna make a huge ball. Just kind of pack it down. This dough is pretty thick, so it doesn't expand too far out to the sides. You don't want to completely go to the edges, just so that if it does, it doesn't go over the edge. But you can get pretty close to the edges. That is ready to go in the oven. 425 top rack. This will be in there for about 15 minutes ish. The biggest thing is to just kind of watch it. Around minute 10, I'm going to be wanting to watch it real closely to make sure that it's not overcooking. What we're really looking for on the top is just to make sure that it's kind of browning around the top and around the edges. It's not going to raise up too much because it's not cooking all the way through like a traditional cookie would. We want the inside to be somewhat doughy. That's why we have it on the high temperature. So we have the shell, crunchy shell on the outside, with the inside being slightly gooey and doughy, which is great. All right, so we still have some leftover cookie dough. There are two things we can do with this. We can make cookies, or we're gonna do both in this case. Save some, pre-make one for later. So cookie dough freezes really well. And I find that what I'll generally do is after I put it in the oven, it's about 17 minutes in there, 17, 18 minutes. But if you've frozen your cookie dough, you just put it right on. While it's preheating, it'll thaw it out for you, and you only need to add usually 2 or 3 minutes to the bake time. So that's pretty nice. Just put it in one of those freezer Ziploc baggies. We've got one for a later date. To make our actual cookies, if you've seen any of those cookie delivery services like Chip or Crumble or Crave, it's a huge thing in Utah. Their cookies are ginormous. They're 6 ounces of dough generally. So we're gonna make some just like that as well. So weigh it out. That's a little too heavy. All right. Parchment paper. Always use parchment paper. Never use wax paper. And these cookies, you don't have to put, I wouldn't put 3 across, but you don't have to worry too much about spacing on them. You kind of press them down a little bit. We're gonna cook them at a really high temperature, the 425, so they won't fall very much. That way, all right, so now we've got these already. plenty enough for one tray, thankfully. It's gonna go in the oven, 425, 8 minutes. Nice and brown they are on top. I'm gonna let these sit for a minute or two before we move them to the cooling rack. That way they don't fall apart on us. They've sat for a couple minutes, so we can go ahead and move them to the cooling rack. Oh, look at that. Nice around the edges. So you can see it pretty much filled out almost the whole way. And in the time that it took to bake that, these cooked as well. So they're all nice and done. Now it's time for some ice cream to throw on top of this. I love to make ice cream, but I have not been able to bring myself to just make a plain vanilla batch. So for stuff like this, I just go buy ice cream. I like to cover it with some magic shell and some caramel. Delicious. There you have the OG chocolate chip cookie skillet and the extra cookies left over. Again, if you make this recipe, post a photo of it on your Instagram and tag Weekly Cheats so we can share it. And again, don't forget to comment and subscribe.